Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Reports, the only independent pollster unafraid to ask any question and tell you what the results mean. And of course, that's as evidenced by our many community strikes and demonetized videos right here on YouTube. And don't forget, according to the Twitter files, we showed up number 42 on the list of accounts that the government itself wanted censored because of 2022 misinformation, if you know what I'm talking about. So follow this channel if you want to hear the most taboo data directly interpreted from the most accurate pollster's mouth. And today, we're going to be talking about the top 5 reasons out of our most recent polling that Donald Trump is running away with this election. And here's number 1, that most famous question popularized by Ronald Reagan in his 1980 campaign against Jimmy Carter. He said this question to the audience at a debate: are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And right now, only 39% of the electorate says yes, while 54% say no. That's 15 points underwater, an incredibly large margin. Things in this country, out of voters' own mouths, are horrible. People are hurting. But here are the numbers by party. And there's quite a bit of difference between Republicans and Democrats. Only 23% of Republicans say they're better off than they were 4 years ago. 72% say no. But 60% of Democrats, whatever is happening for them, they're better off now than they were back then. And only 35% of them say no. But look at independents. Joe Biden needs to win those independents to take home a victory in this coming fall. Only 33% of independents say they're better off than they were 4 years ago, but 57% say no. Now, in the rest of the crosstabs, which our platinum subscribers get to see, the only people who by a majority said they were doing better were those with incomes over $200,000 a year. Those with graduate degrees who was not doing better were minority voters. Hispanic voters were underwater, and blacks were essentially split on this question at, I think, 45% to 44%. But how about 18 to 39-year-olds? You know, that voting bloc that usually leans somewhat left and is optimistic because they have their whole lives ahead of them? Well, only a slight majority, 51%, say they're better off than they were 4 years ago. And that's a really sad statement about the current state of affairs in America. Perhaps it's because, according to our numbers, which vary quite differently from the official numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, unemployment rate is actually above 8%, not under 4%. And the 18 to 39-year-old unemployment rate, according to our numbers, is 15%. That's really high. But maybe it's something else. I'm just, throwing out possible options. But here's that question by what voters think about Biden's job performance. And those Biden strong approvers, 87% say they're doing better. And I just really don't understand that. With how objectively bad things are in the country, the border being overrun, inflation through the roof, and possibly on the brink of economic collapse, how are 87% of Biden's strong approvers saying they're better off than they were 4 years ago? Maybe it's just because they like the guy in the Oval Office. Insert something about ruling over the ashes here. But everybody else is doing far worse, especially Biden's strong disapprovers. Only 10% say they're doing better, but 85% say no. But isn't it incredible how much this signal varies from the party numbers? There really is something about Joe Biden that's driving a wedge in America. Someone recently in our video comments pointed out that this whole administration has a feel of, the Marie Antoinette let them eat cake kind of vibe. I can definitely feel it, and perhaps this question provides some supporting evidence. But maybe this next question does too. And on to number 4. Donald Trump's party has a lead on the issues that matter. And here we're talking about the economy. Which political party do you trust more to handle the economy? Only 39% of the electorate says Democrats, but 12 points more, 51%, a majority, say Republicans. And as James Carville would say here, it's the economy, stupid. Now, of course, Joe Biden just famously went on CNN and had an interview with Aaron Burnett, where he disagreed wholeheartedly the economy was bad. He said he's already fixed it. And not only that pollsters like us were wrong, that Republicans aren't trusted more on the party. Well, I have to vociferously disagree and hang on to the end of the video to show proof why our polls aren't wrong. Voters trust Republicans more because they think that Democrats have wrecked the economy. Here are the party numbers, and 89% of Republicans say they trust Republicans more, But only 79% of Democrats say they trust Democrats more. But look at that 17% not sure number. I think that's kind of the definition of cognitive dissonance. They just can't bring themselves to say Republicans. But independents, 50% Republicans to 29% Democrats. And that's a 21-point lead if you're counting. I'll spare you the numbers from the other issues, but we've asked on a whole bunch of them, and Republicans lead on almost every one except abortion, where they're basically tied, and climate change, where Democrats have, I think the last time, a 3-point lead. But didn't you think that number would be bigger? But here's the next question, which brings us on to number 3. Voters think the country is headed in the wrong direction. We ask this question of voters every night, and so Platinum subscribers get to see all that data going back years and years. Is the country headed in the right direction, or has it gotten off on the wrong track? And right now, only 28% of voters say the country's headed in the right direction, but 67% say it's headed in the wrong track. Not a vote of confidence for the incumbent president. But here are some of those historical numbers I talked about, and I went back exactly 4 years. And back then, 35% of voters said the country was headed in the right direction, and 57% said on the wrong track. So that's 7 points less right direction now and 10 points more wrong track. So 17 points worse than we were doing 4 years ago when that incumbent president lost. And not only that, it was at the absolute height of the COVID pandemic mania, when people were dying nightly on evening news and supply chains were backed up trying to get all that toilet paper and those masks into our grocery stores. But hold on, things are even worse than this. And here are the historical numbers and the change for just independent voters. Again, the voters that Biden's going to need in order to get to a majority in the polls in November. 29% of them said the country was headed in the right direction 4 years ago, and now it's 23%, a 6-point loss. And right now, wrong track is up 11 points. So again, a 17-point swing in independent voters. That's horrible. Look around and ask yourself how the incumbent president can win re-election when only about 35% of the voting electorate is Democrats, when less than 1 in 4 independent voters say the country is headed in the right direction. There's just no way. But on to one that's a little more interesting. To a large number of voters, Donald Trump's opponent represents an authoritarian occupation. We like to poll on the state of our nation, and this is a new question we came up with. Back after the Constitutional Convention, somebody asked Benjamin Franklin what kind of government he had given the people, and he famously said, "A republic, if you can keep it," which is closer to your opinion, that America has done a good job of keeping the republic, or that the republic the founders created has already fallen. Now, we've asked questions kind of like this, whether or not the federal government has the consent of the governed, but this is the most direct and stark, and these results are just outright horrible. Only 39% of the electorate says the government's done a good job keeping the republic, but 47%, a strong plurality, say the republic has already fallen. And that 47% is coincidentally about the number of people that vote for Trump, and that 39% coincidentally is about the number of people that would vote for Biden in our current polling. But when you look at the party numbers, a different signal arises. And actually, Republicans and Democrats somewhat agree about this. 34% of Republicans say the federal government has done a good job keeping the republic, but 53% say it's fallen. And the independent numbers are almost identical to the Republican numbers in this poll. But only 50% of Democrats say the federal government's done a good job, but 35% of them say the republic has fallen. But why am I bringing this question up? Well, it's not about party. It's actually about Joe Biden. And this is one of the reasons I think Donald Trump is running away with the election. Joe Biden's strong approvers, overwhelmingly 66% of them, say the government is doing a good job keeping the republic. Only 19% say the republic has fallen. But look at Joe Biden disapprovers, the somewhats and the strongly disapproves. 23% of Joe Biden's strong disapprovers say the government's doing a good job, but 64% say the government's fallen. And this is by far, of anywhere in the demographics, the strongest signal. So when talking about the fallen republic, it really is about Joe Biden. And the mainstream media loves to paint Trump as a potential dictator. But the truth is, when it comes to these numbers, they're probably talking about the wrong person. And we got a ton of other polling to back it up. 54% of Republicans think that in the next few years, a civil war is at least somewhat likely. And 56% of Republicans say that civil war is more likely if Joe Biden wins, but only 38% of Democrats think civil war is more likely if Trump wins. And finally, the number one reason why Trump is almost undoubtedly going to win in the fall is that he is just absolutely crushing it in the polls. He has a nearly insurmountable lead, a lead that's too big to rig, so to speak. If the 2024 candidates for president were, the list below, who would you vote for? And only 36% of the electorate says Joe Biden, but 48%, 12 points more, say Donald Trump. And yes, we're polling on Kennedy for the person who keeps asking in the comments. He's getting about the same 8 to 10% he gets every time we ask this question. And also there's people who like to dunk on us and say we're not accurate or we're some kind of outlier. But now that these numbers have been out for about 2 weeks, I'm happy to report we're not an outlier. We're just leading from the front. CNN has Donald Trump up 9 points, and other pollsters have almost a similar lead. And even New York Times Siena just came out with a major poll showing that Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden in almost all of the swing states, and in 2 of them by double digits. So no, we're not an outlier. And not only that, we're perennially really accurate. Those of you who followed the channel may have seen this slide before, but this is all of the presidential polling that we've done, over 90,000 respondents involving Donald Trump, about 10 years of polling. And in yellow, I put the final reported vote tally. And if you look at the 5-period moving averages of all our polling to smooth out all the swings, we were dead on in 2016. And I think that's within a point in 2020. So yes, our polling is accurate. And right now, our polling is showing Donald Trump doing incredibly well. To drive the point home, I pulled out a Joe Biden-Donald Trump matchup from 4 years ago, exactly 4 years ago. And Joe Biden was beating Donald Trump by 10 points. And now in our polling, Donald Trump is up 12. That's a 22-point swing in just 4 years. If you run the numbers, that means that Donald Trump has changed about 34 million people's minds, at least 34 million. Or maybe you could say Joe Biden changed their minds. But as we've covered in recent videos, Joe Biden has lost the Hispanic vote. He's just about lost the 18 to 39-year-old vote. He's well on the path of losing the black vote. It turns out that in this current climate, Donald Trump's brand of economic populism is a pretty big tent. And if Joe Biden really did fix the economy like he claims he did, Donald Trump wouldn't be winning by this margin. And that's, of course, before we even touch the issue of the border. But guess whose vote Joe Biden is on the path to losing next? It's actually Democrats. His Democrat job approval rating is now under 70%. And as you can see, his strongly approve rating is deteriorating and the strongly disapprove rating is starting to tick up. Is it time for that switcheroo yet? If you like what you heard in the video, make sure you follow us on YouTube or Rumble. And while you're there, please like the video and leave a comment and make sure that other people get to see this content. And if you haven't yet, please follow us on Twitter at Rasmussen_poll. And thanks for watching.